The Norsemen in Ireland, from first appearance to settlement 795 to 850. Introduction. The Viking Age, spanning from the late 8th century to the mid-11th century, was a period marked by the expansion of Norsemen from Scandinavia to various parts of Europe and beyond. Ireland, with its rich monastic culture and relatively undefended coasts, became a prime target for Viking raids. The first recorded appearance of the Norsemen on the Irish coast in 795 marked the beginning of a significant period of upheaval and transformation for the island. This essay explores the initial contact between the Norsemen and Ireland, the subsequent raids, the establishment of fortified ports, and the large-scale invasions that characterized the early stages of Viking activity in Ireland. The first recorded appearance in 795. The initial raid. The Annals of Ulster, a key source of medieval Irish history, records the first appearance of the Norsemen in 795. They attacked the island of Lambury, off the coast of Dublin, and raided the monastery there. This initial raid was followed by a series of similar attacks on monasteries and settlements along the coast. The choice of monasteries as targets was likely due to their wealth and relative lack of defenses. These early raids were typically swift and brutal, aimed at seizing treasure and taking captives who could be sold as slaves. Impact on monastic life. The impact of these initial raids was profound. Monasteries were centers of learning, culture, and economic activity in Ireland, and their destruction had far-reaching consequences. The raids disrupted monastic life, led to the loss of invaluable manuscripts and artworks, and contributed to a climate of fear and uncertainty. Monks were forced to flee, and many monasteries were abandoned or fortified to defend against further attacks. Broader consequences. The initial raid set the stage for further Norse incursions into Ireland. They demonstrated the vulnerability of the Irish coast and highlighted the wealth that could be plundered. This, in turn, attracted more Norsemen to Ireland, leading to an escalation in the scale and frequency of the raids. The early raids also had a psychological impact, creating a sense of dread and foreboding among the Irish population. The Norsemen's raiding tactics and inland expeditions. Raiding tactics. Following their initial successes on the coast, the Norsemen began to venture further inland. Their raiding tactics were characterized by mobility and surprise. They used longships, which were capable of navigating both open sea and shallow rivers, to penetrate deep into the Irish countryside. This allowed them to strike at inland monasteries and settlements that might have thought themselves safe from maritime raiders. Inland raids. One of the most notable inland raids occurred in 823 when the Norsemen attacked the monastery of Bangor in County Down. The monastery was one of the most important religious centers in Ireland, and its sacking was a significant blow to the Irish Church. Similar raids followed, including attacks on the monasteries of Armagh, Clonmacnoise, and Glendalough. These raids had a devastating effect on the Irish ecclesiastical and social landscape. The monasteries, which were repositories of wealth, knowledge, and culture, were often left in ruins. The loss of life, the destruction of property, and the disruption of monastic communities created a climate of fear and insecurity. Evolution of tactics. The Norsemen's raiding tactics evolved over time. Initially, they relied on surprise and mobility to achieve their objectives. However, as the Irish began to adopt defensive measures, the Norsemen adapted their tactics. They began to use larger forces, employing coordinated attacks by multiple ships and raiding parties. They also developed more sophisticated strategies, such as attacking during harvest time when the population was more vulnerable. Impact on Irish society. The Norse raids had a profound impact on Irish society. They disrupted the established social and economic order, leading to a decline in monastic life and the displacement of populations. The constant threat of raids forced the Irish to adopt defensive measures, such as building fortifications and forming alliances. The raids also led to the emergence of new leaders and power structures, as individuals and groups sought to protect their communities and assert their authority. The seizure and fortification of Anagassan and Dublin in 838. Establishment of longforts. In 838, the Norsemen took a significant step in their interaction with Ireland by seizing and fortifying two strategic ports, Anagassan, located on the east coast in County Louth, and Dublin. These fortified ports, known as longforts, served as bases from which the Norsemen could launch further raids and expeditions. The establishment of these longforts marked a shift from hit-and-run raids to a more sustained and organized presence in Ireland. Anagassan. Anagassan, also known as Lyn Duachail, was one of the first longforts established by the Norsemen. Its location provided easy access to both the Irish Sea and the interior of the country via the River Glyde. The fortification of Anagassan allowed the Norsemen to maintain a permanent presence on the east coast and to control local trade routes. Archaeological evidence from Anagassan suggests that it was a substantial settlement, with defensive structures, storage facilities, and possibly even a shipyard. The longfort served as a base for further raids into the surrounding countryside and helped to consolidate Norse control over the region. Dublin. The establishment of a longfort at Dublin in 838 was even more significant. Located at the mouth of the River Liffey, Dublin was ideally situated for trade and military operations. The Norsemen fortified the site and used it as a base for their activities in Ireland and the wider Irish Sea region. Dublin quickly grew into a major Viking settlement. It became a hub for trade, with connections to Scandinavia, Britain, and mainland Europe. The Norsemen traded in a wide range of goods, including slaves, silver, textiles, and furs. The establishment of Dublin as a longfort marked the beginning of its transformation into a major urban centre and one of the most important Viking towns in the British Isles. Impact on local populations. The establishment of longforts had a significant impact on the local populations. The presence of fortified Norse settlements created new centres of power and influence. The longforts became focal points for trade and commerce, attracting merchants and artisans. They also served as bases for further Norse expansion, leading to increased pressure on the surrounding areas. The local populations were forced to adapt to the new reality, forming alliances and adopting defensive measures to protect their interests. The large-scale invasions of the 840s. The invasion of 841. The 840s saw a significant escalation in Viking activity in Ireland. During this decade, the Norsemen launched a series of large-scale invasions, often involving coordinated attacks by multiple fleets and armies. These invasions were part of a broader pattern of Viking expansion across Europe during this period. In 841, a large Viking fleet arrived in Ireland, marking the beginning of a sustained campaign of conquest and plunder. The fleet, which may have included ships from Norway, Denmark, and other parts of Scandinavia, attacked several coastal and inland sites. The invaders established new longforts, including one at Lough Neagh, which served as a base for raids into the surrounding region. The Battle of Dunmask. One of the most significant events of the 840s was the Battle of Dunmask in 842. This battle, fought near modern-day Dunamace in County Louth, was a major clash between the Norsemen and a coalition of Irish kings. The Irish forces, led by King Feidlimid mac Crimpthain of Munster, attempted to repel the Viking invaders and protect their territories. Despite their efforts, the Irish were defeated, and the Norsemen continued their campaign of plunder and conquest. The Battle of Dunmask highlighted the growing power and organization of the Viking forces in Ireland, as well as the challenges faced by the Irish in defending their lands. The sack of Clonmacnoise. In 844, the Norsemen launched a devastating raid on the monastery of Clonmacnoise, one of the most important religious and cultural centers in Ireland. The attack resulted in the destruction of buildings, the looting of treasures, and the slaughter of monks and laypeople. The sack of Clonmacnoise was part of a broader pattern of attacks on monasteries during this period, as the Norsemen targeted these wealthy and influential institutions. The destruction of Clonmacnoise had a profound impact on the Irish church and society. The loss of religious artifacts, manuscripts, and other treasures was a significant blow to Irish culture and heritage. The attack also underscored the vulnerability of even the most important and well-protected sites to Viking raids. Establishment of Viking kingdoms. By the late 840s, the Norsemen had established a series of semi-permanent settlements and bases across Ireland. These included longforts at Dublin, Wexford, Waterford, and Limerick. The Norsemen also began to establish their own political structures, with Viking leaders asserting control over territories and seeking to integrate themselves into the existing Irish political landscape. The establishment of Viking kingdoms in Ireland marked a new phase in the Norse presence on the island. These kingdoms, which were often centered around fortified towns, became important centers of trade, culture, and political power. The Norsemen's ability to establish and maintain these settlements reflected their growing influence and adaptability. Interaction with the Irish population. Initial hostility. The Norsemen's arrival and subsequent settlement in Ireland had a profound impact on the native Irish population. Initially, the relationship between the Norsemen and the Irish was characterized by violence and conflict. The Viking raids caused widespread destruction and loss of life, and many Irish communities were forced to adopt defensive measures to protect themselves. The Norsemen's tactics, which included surprise attacks and the use of superior weaponry, gave them an advantage in these early encounters. The Irish, who were accustomed to internal conflicts and rivalries, found themselves facing a new and formidable enemy. Economic impact. The Norsemen's presence in Ireland had a significant economic impact. The establishment of longforts and later Viking towns created new centers of trade and commerce. The Norsemen's extensive trade networks connected Ireland to the wider Viking world, facilitating the exchange of goods and ideas. The Norsemen traded in a wide range of goods, including slaves, silver, textiles, and furs. The influx of silver from Viking trade and plunder had a profound effect on the Irish economy, leading to increased wealth and the development of new forms of currency. The Norsemen also introduced new technologies and practices to Ireland. For example, their shipbuilding techniques influenced Irish maritime practices, and their agricultural methods contributed to the development of local economies. Cultural exchange. The interaction between the Norsemen and the Irish led to a rich cultural exchange. The Norsemen brought with them their own language, art, and religious beliefs, which influenced Irish culture in various ways. For example, Norse artistic styles can be seen in Irish metalwork and stone carvings from this period. The Norsemen also adopted aspects of Irish culture. Many Vikings converted to Christianity, and Norse leaders patronized Irish monasteries and religious institutions. The blending of Norse and Irish traditions contributed to the development of a unique hybrid culture in areas where the Norsemen settled. Political alliances and conflicts. The Norsemen's presence in Ireland also had a significant impact on the political landscape. Viking leaders often formed alliances with Irish kings and chieftains, using these relationships to further their own ambitions. These alliances were sometimes sealed through marriage, with Viking leaders marrying into Irish noble families. At the same time, the Norsemen were involved in numerous conflicts with the Irish. Viking raids and invasions continued throughout the 9th and 10th centuries, leading to ongoing violence and instability. The Norsemen's military prowess and strategic acumen made them formidable opponents, and their presence posed a constant challenge to Irish rulers. Resistance and adaptation. Despite the significant impact of the Norsemen on Ireland, the Irish population also demonstrated resilience and adaptability. Irish kings and chieftains adopted new tactics and strategies to defend their territories and resist Viking incursions. Fortified settlements, known as crannogs, were built in lakes and rivers, providing defensible positions against Viking raids. The Irish also engaged in their own forms of resistance. Notable leaders such as Brian Boru, the High King of Ireland, waged successful campaigns against the Norsemen in the late 10th and early 11th centuries. Brian Boru's victory at the Battle of Clontarf in 1014, although not a decisive end to Viking influence in Ireland, was a significant moment in the Irish resistance against the Norsemen. The evolution of Norse settlements. Development of urban centers. The initial Viking longforts established in the 9th century evolved over time into more permanent settlements and towns. This evolution was driven by the Norsemen's desire to consolidate their control, facilitate trade, and integrate into the local economy and society. The longforts of the 9th century laid the foundation for the development of urban centers in Ireland. Dublin, in particular, grew rapidly in size and importance. By the 10th century, Dublin had become a bustling town with a diverse population, including Norsemen, Irish, and traders from other parts of Europe. The town's growth was fueled by its strategic location, which facilitated trade and communication with other Viking settlements and the wider world. Other Viking towns, such as Waterford, Wexford, and Limerick, also developed into important urban centers. These towns became hubs of economic activity, with markets, workshops, and trading posts. The Norsemen's entrepreneurial spirit and extensive trade networks contributed to the prosperity of these urban centers. Integration and hybridization. As the Norse settlements in Ireland became more established, there was a gradual process of integration and hybridization. The Norsemen adopted many aspects of Irish culture, including language, dress, and religious practices. At the same time, they retained elements of their own Norse identity, creating a unique hybrid culture. This process of integration was facilitated by intermarriage between Norse and Irish families, as well as by the conversion of many Norsemen to Christianity. The adoption of Christianity helped to bridge the cultural gap between the Norsemen and the Irish and facilitated the acceptance of Norse leaders within the Irish political and social framework. Political structures and governance. The Norse settlements in Ireland developed their own political structures and systems of governance. Viking leaders, known as jarls or kings, ruled over the towns and surrounding territories. These leaders often formed alliances with Irish kings and chieftains, using these relationships to strengthen their own positions and expand their influence. The governance of Viking towns was characterized by a mix of Norse and Irish traditions. Norse legal practices, such as the assembly or thing, were adapted to the local context. The thing served as a forum for resolving disputes, making laws, and electing leaders. This blending of Norse and Irish legal traditions contributed to the development of a distinctive political culture in the Viking towns. The decline of Norse power in Ireland. Internal conflicts. The Norsemen's dominance in Ireland began to wane in the late 10th and early 11th centuries. Several factors contributed to the decline of Norse power and influence in Ireland. One of the key factors was internal conflict within the Viking communities. Rivalries and power struggles among Norse leaders weakened their ability to maintain control over their territories. These internal conflicts often erupted into violence, further destabilizing the Viking settlements. Irish resistance. The Irish resistance to Norse rule played a significant role in the decline of Norse power. Irish kings and chieftains, such as Brian Boru, mounted successful campaigns against the Norsemen, reclaiming territories and weakening their influence. The Battle of Clontarf in 1014 was a pivotal moment in this resistance, although its impact on Norse power in Ireland has been debated by historians. The Irish resistance was characterized by a combination of military campaigns and strategic alliances. Irish leaders formed coalitions to counter the Norse threat and adopted new tactics to defend their territories. The success of these efforts demonstrated the resilience and adaptability of the Irish population. Changes in trade and economy. Changes in trade and economic patterns also contributed to the decline of Norse power. The decline of the silver trade, which had been a major source of wealth for the Norsemen, reduced their economic influence. Additionally, the rise of new trading centers in Europe shifted the balance of power away from the Viking towns in Ireland. The economic decline of the Norse settlements was also influenced by changes in agricultural practices and the development of new trade routes. The Norsemen's reliance on plunder and trade was no longer sustainable in the face of these changes, leading to a gradual erosion of their economic base. Integration and assimilation. Over time, many Norsemen in Ireland became increasingly integrated into Irish society. As they adopted Irish customs, language, and religion, the distinctiveness of the Norse identity began to fade. This process of assimilation contributed to the gradual decline of Norse political and cultural influence in Ireland. The integration of the Norsemen into Irish society was facilitated by intermarriage, conversion to Christianity, and participation in local political and social structures. As the Norsemen became more assimilated, their distinct cultural and political identity diminished, leading to a blending of Norse and Irish traditions. Conclusion. The arrival of the Norsemen on the Irish coast in 795 marked the beginning of a period of significant upheaval and transformation for Ireland. The initial raids, the establishment of fortified ports, and the large-scale invasions of the 840s had a profound impact on the Irish ecclesiastical, social, and political landscape. The Norsemen's presence in Ireland led to the development of new urban centers, the blending of cultures, and the creation of unique hybrid communities. Despite the challenges and conflicts that characterized their interactions with the Irish, the Norsemen also contributed to the economic and cultural development of Ireland. Their trade networks, technological innovations, and cultural exchanges enriched the Irish society of the time. The decline of Norse power in Ireland in the late 10th and early 11th centuries was the result of a combination of internal conflicts, Irish resistance, economic changes, and assimilation. However, the legacy of the Norsemen in Ireland endured, leaving an indelible mark on the history and culture of the island. The story of the Norsemen in Ireland is a testament to the complexity and dynamism of medieval history. It highlights the interplay of conflict and cooperation, resistance and integration, and the enduring impact of cultural encounters. As we continue to explore the rich tapestry of Ireland's past, the tales of the Norsemen and their interactions with the Irish provide valuable insights into the shaping of a nation. Thanks for listening. Like and comment. And please subscribe, as that will help us get more videos out to those interested in the Middle Ages. See you next time on Medieval Chronicles 1066. Stay curious.